So a bunch of the presidential candidates, Bernie Sanders included, made the rounds on the Sunday talk shows yesterday. This moment caught our eye with Jake Tapper asking Bernie Sanders about some of his positions from the past. Let's take a look.
Percent of Americans all combined.
Yep.
Our investigative K-File team found that early in your political career, way back in 1974, you said that it should be illegal to earn more money than someone could spend in his or her lifetime. You proposed a maximum wage cap on the highest earners.
What year was that?
1970.
What year was that?
It was 45 years ago.
Look, Jake, in all due respect, that was 7 years before I was alive. Did you go back to my third grade essay when I was in PS 197 about what I said?
You were a grown
when
man
I said
in your
40
30s.
or 50. Yeah, but that was 50 years ago. Let's talk about my mayor's record, where I was a transformative mayor, reelected 3 times. We could go back to things that I said in the 70s. I don't think it's productive.
P.S. Whatever. Did you read my third grade essay? I do want to say, I actually see a lot of this in conservative media, and it drives me nuts, which is they're like, oh, Bernie Sanders said something in 1974, some like weird stuff about Sandinistas or communists or whatever. And I'm like, listen, this is exactly like Trump. Like, remember when Trump was running, they're like, oh, well, Trump was on Howard Stern in 1912 or something like that, and said, it was like, oh, well, Trump, remember Hillary's whole case for how Trump was supposedly for the Iraq War because of some, like, bumbling answer on Howard Stern?
I mean, listen,
it's like
Donald Trump said many, many, many worse things, many of them on tape and camera, than Bernie Sanders has ever said.
And people don't care because they listen to the message now. That's what it was true in 2016, and it's going to be true in 2020, which is with Bernie. They're like, I don't care that he said some weird stuff about communists in the 1970s.
It's kind of funny because Jake, even in that moment, seems to instantly realize how ridiculous his question is. Like, even he starts laughing about it. But it's true. This isn't just from the right. This is also from, like, the centrist, the center left, the Jonathan Chaits of the world, et cetera, who say Bernie Sanders has never been vetted. He's never been vetted. Just wait until voters find out about what he said in 1976 and what he wrote in 1968. And the fact of the matter is, first of all, this guy's been in public life for a long time, right? If there's one thing that voters know about Bernie Sanders, it's that he's a democratic socialist, right? How many times have we heard that over and over again? And so the idea that some new piece of information is going to come out that's just going to render him completely unacceptable to the voters, it just seems fanciful to me. I mean, he is actually far more vetted than almost anyone else out there just because of the length of time he's been in the national media spotlight. He was certainly vetted by the Clinton folks last time around.
Yeah, I think this is like boomer media syndrome, where like, there's gonna be some like annoying online boomers who are like, oh, well, didn't you know he honeymooned in this? And again, that is not the case against Bernie. It's like, if you're gonna make a case against him, right, like, let's maybe focus on what the issues that we're actually squabbling about here in 2020. And it's the same thing with Trump. It's like, they tried to dig up all this stuff from his past career as an entertainer or whatever, and people were like, I don't care because I trust that he'll actually break the system. That's all they want, right? They don't care about what somebody said about, they're like, it's all about the authenticity of the views which specifically forgive them. One of the most telling things I ever read was actually the day after Trump's election, and it was Alec McGillis. He's a ProPublica reporter, fantastic. He's a big time Democrat too, and he was talking about how he went and he interviewed white working class women. It's important to remember 54% of white women in this country voted for Trump, even after the Access Hollywood and all that, after the media screamed and everything. And they said, listen, he says some uncouth things. I hear that. One of them was actually a female construction worker who said, I hear worse at my job every single day. But more importantly, it made it seem to me like he's always going to be authentic and tell the truth and be unvarnished. And that's actually all they ever wanted. They don't want AstroTurf performance. They want somebody who's going to be real. And that's what Bernie's appeal is too. He's like, he was probably an authentic communist in the 1970s. I think that's probably right. I mean, I think it's problematic and weird.
I don't think he ever really called himself or considered himself to be a communist. But
whatever.
What I will say is, I've always thought that about the socialist label, that it's one of those things that, like, your consultants would never, ever, ever tell you to say. And so it actually has this weird effect of making people trust him, because they're like, well, if he's willing to put that label on himself, he must be being straight up with us, because no one would poll test or focus group test into telling you to say that. So the fact that you're willing to put it out there, but the fact that the media still asks him these incredibly dumb questions is also why they've been unable to prosecute an effective case against Trump and against Sanders because they don't actually understand his appeal. So Margaret Brennan was trying to press him on, will you support the Democratic nominee? Something that he said
even Michael
over
Bloomberg,
and over again. It's like, why are you wasting our time with this when he's already well on the record with this?
This is a dual-pronged problem because it shows that the media is going to. The 1974 attack is a thing that's coming from the right. So Jake is doing his job. He's being like, hey, respond to this thing, which I see the people on the right talking about. But the whole thing is like this elite media consensus about what the attacks should be, right? About like what the elite discuss. It's all a self-reinforcing mechanism of stupidity that belies like what the election should really be about.
Right.
And that's what bothers me the most.
There was also Chris Wallace. I watched all of these yesterday, obviously, which I don't really watch the Sunday shows very much. Chris Wallace went through. Even Larry Summers says that your program is radical. He's like, he was Treasury Secretary for Clinton. Right. And Bernie goes, I know who Larry Summers is. But it just shows you again, like this whole, it costs too much, how are you going to pay for it, is also not the thing that voters are
I've always thought
the
most powerful thing Bernie ever did with healthcare was when he's like, your taxes are going to go up, your costs are going to go down. Nobody says taxes are going to go up.
Right.
Nobody. Ever. Right? And so I was like,
and here he is,
that
most trusted on healthcare.
That authenticity, exactly. The authenticity of that with voters is always something that cannot be overstated. Trump had that on immigration, which was the top concern of voters in 2016. I think he'll continue to have that, but Bernie's going to have certainly the high ground whenever it comes to healthcare going into this by simply saying the system is broken, your taxes are going to go up, and I promise you that your costs are going to go down. The actual election will not hinge. This is what the GOP thinks it will hinge on the fact that taxes go up. It will be on whether they actually trust that something is going to get done.
Right.
If you vote for it. Yeah. That is the actual hinge. And if they're smart, that's what they were focused on.
Yep, you are exactly right. Very amusing to watch. All right, we're going to have more for you right after this.